I would like to call this meeting of the Southfield City Council to order. This is October 7th, and we're meeting this evening as the Committee of the Whole. Ms. Banks, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Mr. Moss?
Here.
Mr. Frazier?
Here.
Mr. Perkowski?
Here.
Ms. Seymour? Here. Mr. Lamb?
Still on the hall.
Okay. Ms. Jordan? Here. Mr. Cyber?
Here.
We have 7 members present.
Okay. We have our first item on our agenda is one that we've had many times before, and that's the United States Department of Justice Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant Award. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Charette.
Yes, we have Initiative Crime Prevention and Officer Safety. We have Chief Hawkins and Sergeant Bassett here with us this evening to explain again their success in getting the grant and exactly how the grant will be utilized.
All righty, good evening, Council President, Council members, Madam Mayor, when she gets in, and city officials and members of the community. I'm here this evening to request permission from Council to accept a Justice Assistance Grant. And this grant would be used to purchase a mobile surveillance system. And this is a part of a bigger strategy that we have in the police department and in the fire department as well, of attempting to acquire as many grants and other alternative funding in order to purchase equipment, training, and in some cases even personnel at no direct cost to the citizens of the city of Southfield. In fact, over the last 4 years, we have been awarded over $230,000 in grants in the police department that we've used to purchase things such as patrol rifles, a crime mapping system, a firearms simulation system, ballistic vests and helmets, and now the proposed purchase for tonight is a mobile surveillance system. And I have Sergeant Bassett from our Patrol Administration Division here to talk a little bit more about the system that we want to purchase, as well as to answer any questions that you may have about the grants that we've acquired over the years. So I'd like to call Sergeant Bassett up.
Good evening, Sergeant.
Good evening. As the Chief mentioned, we're pursuing a mobile video surveillance system. The system has 2 cameras. It's designed for rapid deployment. It can be operated by a single user on any terrain that a vehicle can traverse. It's mounted on a boom and can go up to 32 feet in the air. Each of the 2 cameras can be operated independently, and all incidents can be recorded on the DVR with the system. The system is $31,000 and is fully funded by the JAG award. There is no matching required with this grant that we've received. The police department anticipates using this for special events, different critical incidents that occur, as well as in working with the fire department, any needs they have as far as fires and things like that, where this could be deployed as well. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions.
Yes. It's only for daylight hours?
No, thank you for asking that. It has night vision capability as well.
Our parks, like Inglenook, they get plenty of use. Is there any way this could be, say, if we had situations where you're having you get neighbor complaints, for example, too many, traffic is all over the place, to get videos of that, what is appearing there, so that we might be able to figure out how to plan that parking lot or the uses? Could that be used, in other words, by the city other than just the police department?
I think in working with council and the city administrator, those all could be uses we would look at.
Okay, Mr. Moss?
Yeah, I'm just curious exactly how does it operate? Is it attached to something that able to move throughout an event, or is it held stationary for?
It can be mounted onto any vehicle with a standard hitch.
Okay.
So the command post for the police and fire has a hitch on it. Our evidence technician vehicles have hitch. Many of the command vehicles, supervisor vehicles have hitches. So any vehicle that has a hitch designed to go onto that vehicle, and again, so anywhere that a vehicle can go, this surveillance system can travel.
Okay.
That's great.
So if there's an incident, this is something that would be used in evidence. You could review the tape or anything like that, you know?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
great.
Mr. McCarthy, or Mr. Fisher?
Why don't you change your name?
Because you screwed it up too.
My apologies.
No. I've been called a lot worse. The hitch, is it, it's not mounted on a trailer or anything, it's a hitch mounted that will, on some other vehicle?
Absolutely. It's solely on a hitch, and that was one of the things we were looking for, because obviously with any kind of trailer or anything like that, it makes the mobility that much more limited. That was why we specifically wanted something that simply with a vehicle, we would be able to get this to whatever the need was for the department or the city.
Now, the tank that you have, does that have a hitch on it?
Maybe I'll defer to the chief. Do you know? I'm not.
The armored vehicle, you know,
Yeah.
Joe drove around here and showed us.
You know, Mr. Frazier, I don't think it does, but I'm not 100% sure. I have to check on that.
Because I can, hopefully it won't happen, but I can imagine a situation where that could be very useful, being attached to the armored vehicle, that,
Yes, absolutely.
certain situations.
It's certainly something you look at. Again, all you have to do is simply add a hitch to a vehicle, and then you could use this surveillance
Okay,
system.
and the only other question I have is, do you know what the field of vision is on that? And, you know, is it, can you see across the street from?
Oh, absolutely. As long as you have a clear line of sight, it's actually 432 times zoom, and it's about a half mile it can zoom into.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mayor Lawrence?
I know I'm a very visual person, and it's just trying to envision what it looks like. It'll be good if there was a picture of it, so that unless it's classified,
we're
we
going
can
to
tell
shoot
them
it.
exactly.
Remember his name?
We'll be coming back for confirmation on this approval, so we will include a picture.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to show the mayor if you'd like,
Sure.
just a picture of the system and how it mounts onto the vehicle.
Thank you.
I have a question that maybe goes to the chief and sergeants, but, you know, we've had a number of complaints of mischief in our parks, and we did approve some cameras for parks that could be moved. They were being mounted, and they were motion activated. I'm wondering in a future, given the Parks and Rec budget being stretched, I'm wondering in a future Edward Byrne Justice Grant, if that would be something that we could consider. It seems to me we've purchased a lot of cameras for patrol dashboards and so on. Is that something that we might consider in the future for the next round of grants?
Certainly, it's something that we can consider, but we have to keep in mind that in order to qualify for these awards, we must justify that the proposed equipment has a legitimate police-related purpose. So obviously that you know, so I think there's a way that we can expand it so that there's some things out in the community that qualify as a legitimate police-related purpose, but it's something that we would have to work on, certainly.
I'm not going to go into the details because I've communicated the incident to you by email, and the parks involved, and they're really driven by resident complaints that live near the park and are seeing some activities that are not in keeping with what we would want to have occur in our parks. So, in my eye, but I'm not the grant writer or the Justice Department, but in my eye, this would have a definite police purpose.
Absolutely, and you know, and I'm glad you brought up the parks, because just today I was having some conversations with some residents about concerns in the parks. And right now, we're undergoing some internal changes within the police department, reorganizing, redirecting some resources, and the parks are one area that is on our radar. And I have I and my staff, we have some exciting ideas on what we can do to address some of these issues that we're having in the parks. And using grants in order to supplement some of those efforts is certainly something we will look at.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this item, there are no other questions or comments. This item will appear on our consent agenda on October 21st, unless there's an objection. All right, then we'll move on to item 2, which is the proposed zoning ordinance amendment and licensing ordinance for smoking lounges. And we're going to ask the chief to stay for this discussion as well. And we'll turn over to Mr. Crowe.
Good evening. If the council recalls, we were here in the spring to alert the council that we had a number of requests for hookah bars, 5 in particular, one of which was approved under our current ordinance. We did not regulate hookah bars, and it fell under the retail section. But since that time, the council has authorized a 180-day moratorium so that we could study further other communities, the law, and come back with some recommendations. In May of 2010, the state passed the Ron Davis Smoke-Free Law, resulting in the prohibition of smoking in restaurants and bars. However, the law provided an exemption for tobacco specialty retail stores, which earns the majority of its income from retail sales of tobacco. This exemption also permits smoking within these stores, and the state has allowed hookah bars and cigar bars to obtain exemptions from the smoke-free law, provided they meet certain criteria. Exemptions are transferable and can be purchased similar to liquor license. As I stated, one such hookah bar was approved and granted a location on Northwestern Highway before the moratorium took place. Sarah from our office did some extensive research on other communities in Michigan and how they treated these smoking lounges and hookah bars. The City of East Lansing amended their city ordinance in February, which prohibits any new hookah lounges within the city but permits existing hookah lounges to transfer locations within the city provided they meet all the requirements. The City of Troy amended their ordinance, reducing the hours of operation of their existing hookah bars because they had a disproportionate number of police calls at existing bars. The City of Sterling Heights requires use permits to be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. West Bloomfield Township is also currently under a moratorium and is working on regulations. And the City of Auburn Hills is looking to put regulations in place. We have consulted all of these communities, working with the City Attorney's Office, and came up with some proposed regulations that would regulate hookah bars and smoking lounges as a special use in a number of commercial zoning districts. The first test that we did was we looked at general business, regional center, and regional shopping with the following special use conditions. First of all, we require that they receive an exemption as a tobacco special realty store, which prohibit the 0% nicotine hookah lounges from the state of Michigan. We've been told that this application itself could cost upwards of $50,000. So they need to have that, first of all. Second, we suggested limiting hours of operation to no later than midnight to limit the potential for police incidents. We required a 1/2 mile separation between smoking lounges, similar to what we did with the alternative financial services and the junk stores. And we had a 20-foot separation between outdoor patios and other business entrances. We required a 50-foot separation between outdoor patios and residential zones. We require that adequate ventilation for smoke in accordance with requirements of the Building and Fire Department and consistent with the licensing requirements. Also, that adequate illumination inside the lounge consistent with city licensing requirements. As crime prevention, prohibiting any window coverings, deterring visibility of the interior of the establishment, and requiring any window tinting to be approved by the police department, and stating the maximum occupancy level for a hookah establishment. These conditions would be in addition to the standard special use conditions that are in the zoning ordinance. And when we did our initial analysis, if you look here on the map, there's possibly 37 potential locations plus the one that was existing approved. 26 could go into the B3 General Business District. These are maximums. 9 under Regional Center and 2 under Regional Shopping, plus meeting all the other standards. And that's the potential maximum number. And after we did that analysis and speaking at agenda, staff meeting, and with council president, we felt that that's too many. So we added the additional criteria similar to the financial services and pawn shops of separating, also have a 500-foot separation between smoking lounges, residential churches, schools, businesses selling liquor, daycare, and firearm businesses. And if we do our analysis and look at those 3 potential commercial districts, currently there would be no additional ones allowed in the B3 General Business, potentially up to 3 in the Regional Center and 1 under Regional Shopping. So that brings us down to 4 potential uses, and coincidentally, we had 4 additional requests. Now, of those requests, and consulted with Sarah, we believe that only 2 of them could meet the criteria based on our new standards that we've, submitted for your consideration. So we always have to be concerned about meeting the reasonable test, that we have our fair share. We took a similar approach with the alternative financial services and the pawn shops. And we bring this back to the council for direction. Obviously, this would be directed back through the Planning Commission and ultimately brought back to the council for a public hearing, if this is the direction we want to go in. So with that presentation, I'm going to ask Sarah to join me up here to field any questions that the council may have.
Also, I'm wondering if, as council presidents, we asked Chief Hawkins to provide us some information. So, Chief, why don't we hear from you? We'll have Sarah on standby for a minute.
Okay. All right, sir, thank you, Council President. And one of the things I was real concerned about was the secondary or indirect effects that this may have in the area. And wasn't so concerned about what's happening inside the establishment, but we've had some well-documented incidents with nightclubs and other social establishments that gave me cause for concern. And so I talked with some chiefs and other law enforcement executives from neighboring communities who have these hookah bars to get a feel for what type of issues they're having in their communities, and to get some suggestions on how we can address them if we get several in our community as well. And what I found is that the chiefs and the other law enforcement executives are telling me that they're not having very many law enforcement related problems with these hookah bars in their communities. Now, there was one in one of our neighboring communities that one received a great deal of publicity. But what I'm being told by the chief in that jurisdiction is that it was pretty much an isolated incident. It wasn't the establishment. It wasn't the fact that you had a hookah bar. It was a management issue, and it was an issue of what type of crowd this particular hookah bar was bringing in. And we've had no incidents whatsoever at the existing one that we have in Southfield. And so, after speaking with some of the other officials from other cities, it's my opinion that right now all the indicators are that that I'm not very, very concerned about secondary indirect effects of these hookah bars in the city. They're not creating the types of problems that a lot of that you hear anecdotally. Some of the ones that received a great deal of publicity, I think, may not be reflective of the type of crowd and the type of issues that these hookah bars bring in. So, in a nutshell, I'm not very, very concerned as chief about the hookah bars, and I think that right now we have the resources to address any type of issues that may arise with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could just piggyback, and maybe the chief can confirm this. The one issue that we had, that we heard about from the city of Troy, was the hookah bars that were open until 2 or later in the morning were getting the after-bar crowd. And they therefore then reduced the hours to midnight, which has eliminated a number of the issues, and you may or may not be able to confirm that.
Yes, once they limited the hours, restricted the hours in that jurisdiction, then the problems decreased substantially. And for what I'm being told, it's, especially in some of the other communities, it's a very peaceful crowd. It's obviously a younger crowd, but we're not seeing any of the issues that would give me cause for alarm at this point. However, having said that, it's something that if we do get more than one in Southfield, it's something that we'll keep on our radar. We'll continue having our community policing officers and other and the other officers, community policing officers, addressing those just like we do any other social establishment that we have in the city.
Chief, did you talk to Royal Oak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And same thing, across the board, with the exception of the jurisdiction of Troy, everybody else was telling me that it was not a big law enforcement concern for them.
The hookah bar in Washington Street drew a very young crowd. Drive-by, first time. Okay. Nothing wrong with the young crowd.
Yes.
That is.
Yeah, you have to be at least 18.
Yeah.
And
I'm old, so they look very young to me. They look like children out there. But at any rate, okay. Anyhow, we're council, we're ready for questions.
Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah. I thought you were standing by for questions.
I'm just standing by for questions.
Sarah did a lot of
She did
the research
the heavy
for
lifting
this,
on
so we
it.
want to give her credit for working up for the department on that, on our behalf.
Could I do
Yes.
my related presentation
Oh,
quickly
absolutely.
before questions?
Sure.
So in conjunction with the zoning aspect, we looked at various cities that also do licensing, so that, we could do, within the city clerk's office, we could do some background checks on people that are coming in. And so you'll also see a proposed ordinance in the packet that deals with licensing. And some of the same kind of discussions that we have with respect to zoning, we've incorporated into the hours, and that they have to make sure that the parking lots are cleared by 12:30, and different obligations on the part of the management. And one of the beauties of this is that if you're starting to have a problem, for example, if the chief is having a problem, we'll go through a termination of their license, which is actually easier than, going through a whole revocation of a special use. So I think that we can also, if there is a concern of council, this will give us a little more added protection in the sense that they could lose a license to have a smoking lounge within the city. So again, a lot of this, you'll just see, it's our typical background type checks of the person that's operating. And it has various restrictions about, the age restrictions, hours of operations, no alcohol can be consumed, those kind of standard things that you would expect, but it'll be within this licensing.
And can I just get a clarification? As council presidents, we've talked about schools, churches, and so on. I looked at the bowl pipe, so that's not in here yet?
No, we didn't, we wanted to bring that as
Okay.
a presentation, and then if you're concurrent with that, we will move
Okay.
that
Just to be clear,
regulation.
I
But
just-
yeah,
yeah.
that reduced, we have the language up here, that reduced it from 39 to 5.
Okay,
And we will incorporate that extra language in there.
if council.
If the council.
Yeah. And before we go around, just a reminder, tobacco is legal in Michigan, and the state is licensing these, so we can't outright ban them, if anybody's thinking that, but the best bet is to regulate. So, Mr. Moss is first, then the mayor, and then Mr. Moss.
Yeah, this came before our legislative committee. I have a question first. Can you serve food at a hookah bar?
It has to be prepackaged food. Again, it gets to the exemption for the smoking tobacco specialty retail, has to earn its majority of its income from retail sales, which limits what they do, other things that they do on site. Right?
No food or alcohol, besides, you could have prepackaged chips or bottles of pop, things like that, but no wait staff with service of food or alcohol or beverages at all.
Yeah, because I would support the zoning restrictions that take it down to that 5 existing locations. I think that, you get higher than that, it's an oversaturation. And I'll take it from this perspective. And I pulled up the article in the Oakland Press that Mr. Charette passed out to us probably about a month ago, which talked about the Troy incident. And, if you take the logic behind why did the state legislature pass the smoking ban in restaurants, it was a community benefit, to make sure that people aren't having secondhand smoke and to kind of curb that activity. Personal privacy of your own home, perfectly fine, but in areas of public gathering, we wanted to limit that. And in that article that Mr. Charette passed out, they had talked to a doctor from Beaumont, and also he was citing the World Health Organization. And he said that hookah is worse than cigarettes because it's more potent. You get the same hazards and risks and disease at a much faster, accelerated pace. So the logic behind banning smoking in restaurants, I think, stands. It's the same logic behind we would want to restrict this type of activity in Southfield. So 37 is for sure no limits, and it could be an oversaturation. 37 locations is also, in my mind, too many. So I would be supportive of limiting it to, we would have the 5 potential existing locations for this. So I'm in support of the presentation.
Mayor Lawrence?
My question was the same. Have we received any definition of the health effects of smoking cigarettes?
The Center for Disease Control, I got on their website, and basically what they're saying is that an hour-long session of hookah bar or hookah pipe smoking is 100 times worse than smoking a single cigarette. Not only are, the carcinogens in the actual tobacco product themselves, but then the charcoal and things that they use to light the pipe is also, has additional carcinogens, and obviously that much worse.
So are the age of 18 the same as cigarettes?
I'm sorry?
Yeah. The age.
Oh, yes, for any tobacco.
So they're treating it as tobacco.
Yes.
So, within the hookah bar, they can have, I've never been to one, so do they have music? Is it a club-like environment, or is it just you sit around and smoke and talk?
I actually visited, there's one in Farmington Hills up on Northwestern Highway.
Good research.
Yeah, I just went in and left. There, it's basically there are couches and chairs, and then in the center is, a small table to put I believe you rent the pipe, and then you buy the tobacco, and, load up whatever type of flavor, and then, sit around and.
They're communal.
Yeah,
right?
they're communal.
6, 8 people.
Right, and, so you're basically, it seems to me that you're renting the use of the pipe and then purchasing your tobacco. So, and they had, some video games, they had some flat screen TVs, and I went in the middle of the day, so that wasn't very busy, but there were a couple kids that had, takeout restaurants salads and things like that from, you know, next door or a couple doors down.
Mhm.
So, but they get that packaged chips and, you know, out there, and that's kind of how
So
it
do
works.
they actually sell the tobacco for like personal use as well?
Yes, I believe so. You can
So
already
the
have
one
that.
we have now has a retail section to it?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can.
I guess I need to walk inside once I can understand it, okay. So, we are saying 12 o'clock midnight?
Yes.
Will be, okay. And how do they card people? Are they required, the police chief is here, are they required to card you?
Yes, it's under the, they have to, just like any other, one in any other establishment. They have to be sure that this person is of age to use tobacco, which is 18 years old. So it'd be just like going to a party store and purchasing cigarettes, same type of regulation.
Now, I know that there are some restaurants that in the same building, that you can go into a separate room and it's a hookah bar. Now, how does this ordinance address that? Because I know in Dearborn, there are restaurants, and then in the same building, you just go through the door and it's a hookah bar.
It's my understanding as part of the Ron Davis smoke-free law, you have to have they have to be physically separated, Sue, right?
Yeah.
Physically separated from the restaurant portion. So it was my understanding that, you know, I didn't.
So with that being said,
No.
We have extra.
so.
Oh, yeah, we have other requirements for separation.
So like for these 4 locations, if we did a restaurant and they say they have the separation, is that additional or is that inclusive in the 4 locations?
Through the chair, they would have to still meet our same standards because of the use. They'd have to be in B3 or RC or RS.
So they still have to.
They have to meet all the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Next we go to Mr. Petrosky.
I was just going to say that, I forgot the name of the restaurant here at 11 Mile Road, and Evergreen used to have one in the back room. You didn't know? Yeah, it was the front section was the restaurant in the back, and was hookah bar way back when, and we never had a problem with it. It was the only one in the area, but I think it's become a fad now, and so, those who had them, you know, it was just so much part of getting together after work and having something to eat and go into the back room and talk or play cards or something, whatever.
Right, and you remember that the law changed in 2010.
Yeah,
And also there's more of a trend to have the outdoor seating.
yeah.
So they're more involved with the public, and we want to make sure that if I'm going to the store next door, that the smoke doesn't cause me harm or you harm or our residents harm, so.
So I was going to ask the question to the city attorney, is that the club on 12 Mile Road, when we gave them a liquor license, we had a special thing they had to sign. Do you recall that?
Is this before
Maybe
2010?
No, I don't know if it was, no, it's binding. In other words, we had a problem with the previous owners of that club.
Oh, up on 12 Mile.
Former Palace.
The former palace,
Yeah.
well, that was a conditional rezoning.
That's what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
but I mean, is there something like that where they could be locally licensed and put together some type of a contract, I'll call it a contract, that they have so many violations that something's withdrawn, the license
Well,
is withdrawn?
remember that this proposed licensing ordinance incorporates our general licensing. And our licensing says, if you violate the terms of the ordinance, we have the right to terminate that license for cause. So we go through the process, and we have the right to take that license back.
Well, I'd like to have some controls. I think what is before us now is, I've got a lot of requests for them, and I didn't know where we were gonna go with it. But it's usually, gentlemen, they close their stores and go out afterwards, so that's why it, goes on after midnight, is because they don't close their stores till late in the day, so that's where they get together, and, I have never heard, even from people who go to them, that there's ever been any problem with them, because they're all buddies, they sit and relax after work. And, but I would agree with what we have and try it out and see. But like I said, I've never heard from anybody who goes to them that there were any fights or anything that would be negative to the neighbors or to the city.
And again, I think just our research is that although they might not serve alcohol on the premise, it's after bar crowds have already been drinking that come to these later at night that have been the problem, not the day use or early evening use.
Yeah. The hours is restricted to 12 o'clock, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Mr. Frazier.
Okay. You say there's no food served in there other than prepackaged food?
That's correct.
Now, Copper Canyon is a cigar bar.
There you go.
And the physical separation for the cigar bar is you open the door, walk through it, shut the door. So that's the physical separation. And the rules for hookah bars is that the majority of their income has to come from the sale of tobacco. So what is to prevent someone from ordering food from, and I'll just use Copper Canyon. Let's say that the cigar bar is now a hookah bar. Ordering food from Copper Canyon and have it delivered into the hookah bar.
They're allowed to bring food in.
I'm asking a question.
Again, that's the state licensing requirement, so I don't know if that's a
But
loophole that
the
someone's
thing
trying to
is,
get around.
sales from,
Maybe they're, the entity of the
if they,
tobacco is a different entity, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we'd have to look at that, but, you know, we could talk, if that, we could actually prohibit that, we could restrict the ability to bring food into these.
well,
under licensing.
I'm saying, when we put ordinances together, a lot of times, once they've been approved and they're up and running, we have unintended consequences.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of a way that someone might want to get around our ordinance and do what they want to do rather than follow the ordinance.
Right.
And it would handcuff our, it would give our police a problem, because technically they would be following our ordinance.
Right. Right.
But not the spirit of what we were trying to
We'll
accomplish.
look at that, relationship.
Okay, the second question I have is, let's assume that we don't have any rules. How are the licenses distributed? Is it by population, or is it,
State licenses?
yes,
It's actually, the exemptions are in place. There's only a certain number, because if you were going to attempt to qualify as a specialty tobacco retail store, you had to have applied before the smoking law went into effect. So say, throughout the state of Michigan, 100 of these places applied, then there are only 100 exemptions available statewide. So those can now be they can be transferred around, but the origination.
There's a finding number.
Right, there's a defining number.
That's
So
why they're
it's
so
not,
expensive.
right, there cannot be any new exemptions generated. They had to have applied and continued their proof that they're, that a certain percentage comes from the sale of tobacco annually to the state of Michigan.
so the finite number is the number of people that had applied for the exemption prior to the no smoking.
Correct. Correct.
That's very interesting.
Yep. And some people had the foresight, I think, to apply for it, and then if they didn't need it anymore now, then they, the state told them they were able to transfer it, similar to a liquor license, so most people are making it
So
financially.
it is state-run rather than...
Correct.
We don't have any, not like our liquor licenses by population.
No, it's actually not a license, it's an exemption,
Well,
technically, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we were just talking about
That's how they're
technicalities.
qualifying it.
Okay, now, what department in the state manages this?
It's the alcohol and, oh my gosh, tobacco.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so-
drawing a blank.
The same folks that we talked with about the, would be the
Right.
ones that would...
Right, they would regulate those under that, in that department.
Okay. All right, thank you, that's it.
Right, Mr. Lamb?
Oh, I agree with
I understand that food is allowed to be brought in anytime.
But just ask a question.
Yes.
I heard you talk about food. I know for a fact that it's allowed. Okay?
If I could, Mr. Lance,
They
they can
weren't all
purchase
true.
the food from a different location and bring it
Yes,
in
bring it in.
voluntarily. They can't sell
That's
food
right.
on premises unless it's
Right,
prepackaged.
and that's what your question was.
Yeah.
All right, I have another question. What's to stop them from using drugs in those water pipes?
They do. They do.
Who's regulating them?
Well,
Who knows?
our licensing ordinance would address that. If we found that out to be true,
Who knows?
we would revoke their license.
Nobody's gonna squeal. Not the ones using it anyway.
Yes, please, ma'am.
It's pretty much they do.
Well, send in
That's our
a
business.
supply and let them smoke
Absolutely.
and see what happens.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Okay. Is that it? Ms. Mayor?
Just a question, if I have a cigar shop, I'm not a hookah store, can I also have pipes in there? It's not a hookah store, but can I allow pipes in there as well?
Yes. This is regulated under the tobacco specialty retail store. So hookah is just a subset of that. So we're
So
not
hookah is
regulating
not a
specifically hookah.
Okay.
We are regulating the smoking lounges and the specialty retail.
So our cigars, because we have I think 4 cigars? I know two, I think I know of 3. Yeah, so they can, are they included in this?
Well, they can sell whatever products they want.
I know, but
It's just
they
if they want to have the lounge there, yes, they
Well,
would be.
both of, the 2 of them I know do have a lounge.
Right.
Almost all of them have a lounge for the cigars.
They would have.
So you can actually go in there and do a cigar or a hookah, right?
Then they would be existing non-conforming if they don't meet our standards. So
As long as they have the exemption.
Right.
Yes, right, they still have to meet that.
Okay, I'm hearing different things. I'm an existing cigar bar, and they've been there for like 10 years. So if I went into the lounge, I could smoke a hookah, or I could smoke a cigar, right?
Yes, but they would have had to apply for that exemption prior to 2010 to have any smoking lounge activities there.
But under zoning, they'd be
But under- Right,
grandfathered.
under zoning, they'd be
The
grandfathered.
existing non-conforming.
Right, existing. So
Because if they altered, changed, and went out of business for a year, then they'd have to conform. That's a little different than grandfather.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, yeah,
So the 4 will be in addition to.
that's right.
So, like, let's take Copper King. In their quote-unquote cigar lounge, you can also smoke a pipe in there as well. And that would be legal. Okay. So it's just this concept, instead of saying a cigar bar, we're a hookah bar. So if I went to a hookah bar, I could smoke cigars or cigarettes or anything, right?
I think just the distinction is I know that, Churchill's up
Yes.
near 12 Mile and Telegraph.
Yes.
They had a small, like a 2-seat area
Yeah.
to smoke cigars,
Mhm.
And that was just kind of a accessory to what they were doing. But, the intent obviously of those smoking lounges is pretty much the whole thing is the lounge with a small subsection of the retail sales. I think that's kind of, but no, you're right, that was not addressed on the map. The only existing, smoking lounge that I specified was, one where the primary use was the actual lounge itself.
But we'll incorporate that
We
before it
can,
comes back to
yeah.
council.
Okay, and then the other question is, those restaurants that have a separate area designated, you go outside the door, a lot of the bars have them, and if you want to smoke a cigarette, So if there's seating out there, you could actually put a hookah thing there, and you could smoke your hookah as well as your cigarette, right?
Under the smoke-free law, though, Sue, and correct me if I'm wrong, though, you could have a patio
You
for
can.
people to smoke. And
But
that
not
is
serve
covered.
food.
Right, but not serve
But I
food
thought
or
that's what the
alcohol.
mayor was saying.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that I've eaten in the restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm going outside to smoke.
Right.
They could have a pipe there too, while they're smoking their cigarette, if they wanted to have a pipe there.
I don't think we would allow for them to purchase the tobacco on the
Right
property,
there, no.
correct?
No, because that would be a retail sale outside of a
Right,
restaurant.
right.
That wouldn't be zoned properly.
If they brought their own, like,
they
brought their own, bring their own hookah pipe, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the issue.
All right, Mayor, you done? Mayor, is that it?
Well, you buy, from what I hear, if you're a hookah smoker, you have your own personal mouthpiece. You don't have to buy it every time you use it. This is just my concern. I want to be clear if you see this is illegal, and that was my concern. If it's a smoking area, because it's not a hookah regulation, we are actually zoning smoking lounges. And in a smoking lounge, any kind of way you want to smoke is legal.
Yeah, any substance other than what's prohibited. You could even, I mean, it's even our
Other
let's
than
talk about-
marijuana.
Right. Any kind of form of tobacco is, you can
So
smoke it
whether
at any
it's a
time.
cigar, whether
Right.
it's a hookah, whether it's cigarettes.
And some communities have actually regulated the outside smoking areas and put limitations. You must be 50 feet
Mhm.
from an entrance, or you can't be adjacent. Those are things we can look at as well, in addition to this, if that's something that the council would like us to look at.
Because I
And
know.
a lot of times, there are times when someone's smoking 5 feet out of the door, you have to go through that, and that's not really allowed by the law. So a designated area could meet certain standards that we could meet.
Well, I know Mr. Jones has a pretty designated area, and they want to be respectful as smokers. I don't think smokers should be treated as aliens, I just don't want them around.
You just want them in outer space.
Right.
Mayor, you do bring a point. There are other clubs and institutions that try to provide reasonable amenities for smokers, but then these haphazard tents and covered areas that are just stuck up outside in case the weather's inclement, that then becomes eyesores and other issues. So that's why some communities have regulated that. So if you're going to do it, these are the standards that you do it under.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Lance is next.
I have seen, and you're not gonna believe it, young adults smoking small water pipes.
They're called bongs.
What are they called?
Bongs.
I don't know what they're called. And I understand, I asked them what are they using in there, and they said tobacco, but I didn't see tobacco. And the smoke,
Where was this?
can't tell you that.
Oh.
I've seen it.
I just wondered where you were hanging out.
Yeah. I'm an official spy.
Okay.
You
Well,
go incognito.
I think there's another question that, and this is sort of hypothetical, but playing on Mr. Frazier's Copper Canyon serves food, serves alcohol, and it's open after midnight. So if they were to have a hookah in their cigar bar, could they still smoke after midnight? Right now, they
Not
can.
according to our regulations.
Huh?
They had it before.
Right.
Oh,
They're
well,
existing.
yeah.
Again, and we defer to the city attorney, but the city of Troy did roll back the hours of operation for existing hookahs to midnight because of similar situations. And I am interested, we'll investigate that a little bit further, how
We'll take a look at that.
they got
scenario.
approved.
Right.
And
It could possibly come up, you know. All right, so if there's no other questions
I just want to make sure that, you get a consensus on.
Yeah, I'm going there right
to
now.
include the
Yeah, that's where I'm going next. I wanted to see if there's any more questions. And if not, then we have two scenarios that were presented to us. A is the 37 locations, or B, which includes schools, the distance from schools, churches, and something else.
Businesses selling liquor,
Oh,
daycares,
right.
firearm
Right.
businesses, et
Okay.
cetera.
So we have two choices, Ms. Jordan, A or B? B? B.
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 Mr. Seymour.
B is the smaller amount,
Right.
B.
and C.
Mr. Lance?
What is the question?
We have two choices. You can go with A, which is the 37 locations, or B, which is in front of you there, that restricts, a greater restriction, so it's only 5 potential locations. Okay? And Mr.
Okay, but I'd like to incorporate in that some of the things that were raised here that they're going to investigate, so.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Were you going around this again?
Now we have a logistical question, because our moratorium
I was gonna raise that.
ends before we can get this all together. So,
I want to move Rule 10.
If I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
just help with the discussion. Moratorium ends in the beginning of November. And based on this discussion, we were gonna request coming back on the 21st as a consent item, and request maybe 120-day
We have to get your plan.
moratorium. So we need 90 days on average to get through the planning commission back to council. So it requests 120 days, not a full 6 months, at the October 21st meeting.
This doesn't prohibit us from doing that now.
but wouldn't
No,
it-
I know they're sensitive about the Rule
Wouldn't it
10.
be better to do this on camera? I'm thinking, just for the community notification of this, rather than, I know we could do it tonight, and certainly if you want to move it, go right ahead, but
No, I'll withdraw my motion, I just.
I was just thinking if we did it on the
Why
21st, it would-
complicate all these things on the agenda?
yeah. Well, it's a
Simple
consent
thing.
item. All right, so we're going to move to the 21st and the moratorium extension for 120 days. All right? Anything else on this topic? Terry and Sarah, we appreciate all the work that you've done thus far in this. And I think you have some direction.
You are now.
Okay. All right, next we're going on, and thank you, Chief, as well.
Okay, you are.
We're going on to, this is an sort of old business. We had a discussion on this earlier in the summer. And we promised that we would revisit this, and this is the amendment to section 5.22 of the zoning ordinance. And I believe it's Ms. Ward, right?
Correct, thank you. So this is the proposal to the administrative site plan amendment process that is currently within our zoning ordinance. You'll recollect that it came really as a discussion on the table as a result of the Arbor Law building that was administratively approved as an amendment to an existing site plan. And so I heard what the comments were that day, and then put some language together, and we took it to legislative committee, and there were a few more comments. And so this, what you see in front of you now, incorporates pretty much all the changes that and suggestions that have kind of come at this table. But basically, the first part says that the city planner will have approval to amend a previously approved site plan if the amendment is for expansion of floor space to an existing building, so it can't be a new building, an existing building which is previously approved by the city council, as long as and we kept the same language, the expansion is no greater than 25% of the gross square foot of the building area. So that just clarifies that it has to be an existing building. The discussion at legislative committee was then, well, sometimes the planner gets a request to have an accessory structure, and do we want to bring every shed or garage or carport fence dumpster enclosure back to council, because that would be an amendment of a previously approved site plan, that would be a separate building. And so legislative thought, no, let's talk about some accessory structures that would be, we would be okay with giving that to the planner as administrative power. So subsection 2 now talks about, or this could be administratively approved by the planner, construction of a customary accessory structure, such as garage, shed, carport, dumpster screen, when the site has already been approved as an existing approved site plan by council. And then we said, provided that the accessory structure does not exceed 10% of the building area, the existing building area, and not to exceed 1,000 square feet. Because there was discussion at the legislative committee, well, what if you had a garage that was, you know, or a carport that maybe is 5,000 square feet? Well, maybe council would want to see that. So we thought, and this was also put in front of the building official, so he's weighed in on this, and he's okay with this language, that this 1,000 square foot max in terms of this accessory structure limited that enough that he was comfortable as well. The other piece that I added here was the existing ordinance says, and provided that the amendment meets all the requirements of the chapter, and this was an issue on the Arbor Loft building, it met it because it could have obtained waivers from the ZBA. And some of the discussion was, well, no, it should meet all of the other requirements without a variance. And so that language is now in front of you as well. That what you intend by this is that it meets all the requirements without having to go get a waiver from the ZBA. So again, that's all of the comments that I've kind of heard, and I think I've worked with both planning and building, and this is the recommendation we've come up with. I know the planning still has a couple of issues that we can discuss in regards to some of these business wording. Right. So right now, that's kind of what I put together, and we wanted to see where council would be with this language.
Chair of the Legislative Committee, do you have anything to add?
No, I think our concerns were definitely expressed and met with the subsection 2.
Okay. Mr. Crowder, is there anything you want to add before we have
I just wanted to point out to council, and again, I'm comfortable with the language, but I did want to point out, though, that there are two situations where a site plan could be approved or has been approved in the past without going in front of city council. In the 1960s up into the early 80s, there were a number of site plans that were approved administratively by the traffic engineer and the planner. So those are technically on the books as approved site plan. They haven't technically been approved by the council. So that's one area that if there was even a small amendment to any of those previously approved plans, which would trigger coming back to council. Secondly, the way the ordinance is written is that any building in an industrial, light industrial or I-1 zone does not come before council, has never come before council. So that's another situation where there is a site plan that's been approved, but not necessarily by council. And by keeping the wording approved by city council, then would trigger those additional situations coming before city council. And that might be a direction that the council wants to go. There was reasons why they were exempted in the past, but just for the sake of understanding, not just the fee would go from $750 to $1,500 or more, but typically an administrative approval can be done in 3 to 4 weeks, whereas council site plan approval takes around 90 to 120 days. So there was reasons why in certain cases, industrial and others were exempted from council approval. So I just wanted to be clear. I mean, if that's the direction council wants to go, we will abide by that. But the way it's currently written, that would now trigger all those previously approved plans, wouldn't technically meet the approved by city council, and then would therefore trigger a full site plan review in all circumstances. So that's all I had to add.
Thank you. All right, we'll go first and then see Mark.
The approvals in the light industrial have all
Can you speak up a little, John?
I don't know if I can. The approvals in the light industrial that are approved by the planner that's been traditional for a very long time. That's never been, it hasn't been a problem.
Okay.
I personally don't see any reason to change that.
So that's the, just to be clear, that's
In
the
the light
I-1 and the IL, or the 1L, sorry. IL, I'm sorry, I-1 and IL, those two zoning.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are the industrial
Is it,
districts.
okay. But that has,
But that probably,
well, traditionally, ever since I've been here, that's been approved by the planner in the light industrial district, and it's never been an issue. And I'm not sure what the limitations are, if any, but those are modifications that can be approved. I think it's very different when it's in the commercial zone or in the residential zone or anything else outside of that. My question originally was, before Terry finished, the 10% of the building area where it says, item 2, construction of a customary accessory structure such as garage, shower, shed, carport, dumpster screen, 10%, not to exceed 1,000 square feet. That's quite a lot. That could be a very large garage. If you think of 1,000 square feet, and think of it in terms of apartments that we were discussing earlier this evening, it's 500 units. If you think of 1,000 square feet, that's rather large. And I just wonder what would be, when you list these items, garage, shed, carport, or dumpster screen, where 10% or 1,000 square feet seems like a lot.
so where are you suggesting?
I guess I need to know what could be 1,000 square feet. A commercial garage could be, if you had to do 6 cars or something like that, but even then, I think it wouldn't be that large. That's quite large. I think it seems excessive to me. And I guess I would like some justification for that 1,000 square feet.
Did anyone answer?
Well, initially I left that blank because I thought, there would be discussion. But when I sent it over to the building official, that was his recommendation, that it be capped at 1,000, 10% of the building area, but not to exceed 1,000 square feet, so that it really minimized what kind of structures could be built.
And again, if I could add, I believe that language comes right out of the building code as far as defining what an accessory structure is. So we
Up to 1,000 square feet?
yes, or 10%, and that's why we thought it was a good threshold. Now remember, we have a 100,000 square foot building out there. It still couldn't, it'd be 10%, which is over 1,000. So it'd be capped at 1,000 feet.
You've got to cap it in terms of a finite figure.
That's why you have, 10% of 100,000 square foot is 10,000. But this would cap it at 1,000.
I'm trying to picture what would be an accessory.
So for example, we did some research on accessory structures. The Target Impact has a proposal in for a 500 square foot outdoor storage building, a little over 500 feet. And we found that the majority of the accessory structures have been in the 500 to 1,000 square foot range. Now, the Word Network on 10 Mile, they actually had a garage that was about 4,000 square feet. But that was well within the 10% of their overall building mass. So we think that the cap of 1,000 square feet or 10% is reasonable based on the definition of accessory structure. And secondly, it falls in line with the typical type of accessory structures that we review in our department. So for those two reasons.
To be clear, and Mr. Comerford supported that.
Yes,
That
he
right,
did.
or-
Yes, he did.
But the only thing that would really reach that size would be basically a storage or garage, right?
There could be storage garages or carports over 1,000 square feet, and that may be something that the council would like to see.
Yeah.
We've had Denso and others who've come in for carports. I think this property across the street here, a large structure, and so then if it's over 1,000 square feet, then it comes before as a site plan amendment.
Well, I guess I'm not wild about it, but I'd be willing to see how it goes, if we run into the problem, maybe let's change it.
All right, Mr. Perkowski,
I think this came about because of the lofts, I'll call it the lofts, in the corner parcel that did not come before council as a site plan. But I think that writing all this into ordinances becomes so restrictive and time-consuming. I think setting a council policy to the planner could accomplish the same thing, that those things should be just as an information before us to give any input we have as a council, just so that you know what's happening. And I think the biggest problem is when you see something, you don't know what it is, you who approved it. And, but I don't know, I just get regulated to death. So,
The only thing I could respond to that is, this also lets a petitioner out there know that this is all that the authority of the planner is.
yeah.
And so, if that person is thinking, I want to do it administratively, it's not just a policy, that's what the ordinance requires. And so if they want to go above that or beyond that, you know, they can't say to the planner, oh, just do this. They will see the ordinance. And so I think it can rise to more of just a policy. It's to let not just the planner know, but it lets developers know where the authority is, that, because this is your authority that you've now ceded to administratively.
Yeah.
And so usually you would do that by ordinance because it's your authority.
Okay. Let me tell you an example where I just get to that point. I had a restaurant over here at Tamale Northwestern, and I built volleyball courts. And they were approved by the planning department and the administration. And then council overturned it, and then you do away with the courts, which they were placed over there. And I thought that, you know, administratively, to go through the thing and build courts costs quite a bit of money, and then to say, you know, you can't do it. So I think either they have the power to do something and approve it so that the business person knows if you go through that administrative and gets approval, it's approved, and that's it. Or if it's going to be second guess and come back and say, hey, we'll approve that, bring it up to the table, and then refute what the administration did. I mean, that occurred to me, and I just think that somebody has to have, a businessman has to know when I get notice it's okay to do this, and they approve it, the letter of approval, that that's it. You know, I don't come back and say after you spend the money and do it, and all of a sudden, you know.
It sounds like you're making an argument
For.
for it.
That's what the ordinance protects.
Well, what I'm really saying is that, I guess, I guess what the attorney said is that, you know, it lets business people know what the rules are.
Right.
Parameters.
All right? So we're actually changing the rules again.
I don't know that you're changing, you're clarifying what your intent
Well,
was.
what happens to the corner over here by the lofts?
It was administratively approved and council,
Just like it.
but they also did not try to say that the power wasn't there of the planner to do what he did because this language was a little
But the
ambiguous.
department was put under stress because they approved it. Planning department, administration, come under the
Well,
so-called.
it was a question that came to the table, whether the issuance of that approval did fit within the parameters of the existing ordinance, and that's what brought this
Okay.
onto the table, was do we want to clarify it?
Well, you know, the only thing that comes to mind is what Terry said about the length of time. You see, I could approve things administratively and get this thing done, if a person wants to get something done, rather than pay more money, and then go through the process and cough up more money, and I don't know, I just think it's an additional burden that could be clearly done by a policy to the department in which you want the regulation to be reviewed by them at the time. If I get notification that something is going on and I have time to react to it, just to the administration, whether you like it or you don't like it, or maybe you should bring it before council, you have that opportunity. But I don't know, I just I just get tired of regulations. I mean, we just been on a real thing with regulations. You can't plant trees in front of your house anymore. You can't build this in front of your house. This is a lot of money for a landscape guide, $600 or whatever. I don't know, I'm just getting tired of regulations.
Mr. Moss is next.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with Mr. Percassi. Is this necessary? I don't know. But the reason that it came before the legislative committee is because that arbor loft situation pitted the planning department against the building department about what is that threshold for having something administratively approved. I'm okay with having the planning department and building department, figure it out on their own, but that didn't happen. So that's kind of why this was brought back before council. I think that maybe a different council and at a different time wouldn't see the need for this, but we were the council that said we do see the need for this when it was brought back before council. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
How many instances do we have?
One, and it sit us through a tizzy. So, there you go.
Next is Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, what I see this doing is actually protecting both the business person and our staff, both the planner and the building people, from the whims of the council, by putting it down on paper and hoping that by doing it this way, we don't hope that they understand what we do, because if we have an off day, we'll go through what we just went through. And this way, it gives them some protection of what their parameters are. And I agree with that. I wish we lived in a world where everyone was in sync, that we didn't have to write everything down because it would work. But you never know when somebody drinks a glass of sour milk before they come to council meeting.
Yeah, a bad hookah.
Yeah.
Mr. Lamb.
What I see.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Ms. Jordan, then Mr. Lamb. Sorry.
I just give it a clarification to the existing ordinance that we have in place, but I'd like to put a different spin on it as it relates to seeing if we can add, with the construction of the structures, matching existing brick exterior that's previously approved. Because I'd hate for the planner to approve something different than what we had previously approved in terms of that structure. And if we could add that, matching existing exterior, whether it's brick or whatever, so it matches, because I think this time we haven't approved, we're approving something that we've never seen, and so we don't want anything that's totally, inconsistent with matching is kind of a subjective term. Or maybe not matching, you can't find the exact brick. Or similar in nature, or maybe not matching, or complementary. Even that is subjective, right? Because what's complementary to one. I almost see that as being something that you could indicate to the planner. That's what you expect. I mean, I'm happy to incorporate that, but I think what you're saying is that when he does or she does those type of amendments, if they fit within the parameters, then you would expect some kind of the two structures. Because even building materials change. I mean, you might not be able to find some of the materials in a building that were, constructed 20 years ago. So they would have to be some kind of, sometimes we talk about an equal kind of substitute, something like that.
Equal or better or something?
Yeah, something like that. Comparable. That's my own.
All right, Mr. Lamb.
What I see, the elimination of the power of the Southfield Council. That's using this, you get the planner, the administrative opening, something will begin to happen. With the power of the...
But it was already here.
Well, the deal is to be here from telling you what may happen in the near future.
That's more restrictive. It's more restrictive. This is more restrictive.
What, going to council?
This defines what's has to be brought before us.
It limits the planner.
Yeah, it does. No. It could be, no, it isn't.
It's making it clear, that to...
Not clear.
It wasn't clear before, this
It depends upon the power of the planner. And if he is given too much power,
But this sets the limit on that. It's really the opposite.
no, it isn't. I don't see it that way.
Well,
All right, what restrictions do we have now? If the planner has all this administrative power, what could stop him?
if you read what it says here, construction of a customary accessory structure, such as a garage, shed, carport, dumpster, and then it cannot exceed 10% of the building area or not exceed 1,000 square feet. That is very definitive.
It
And that
isn't exactly,
keeps the power here.
it isn't exactly that project, the 1,000 feet. What's to stop him from evading that?
Well, the one thing that was the Arbor Loft situation was, we've now clarified that council intends that administrative site plan amendments can only be done in terms of an expansion of existing building. It can never be for an entirely new building, and that's what the issue was. So even number one
But
is
it
a
seems to be-
limitation.
It seems to be changing. All right, maybe I'm not in favor of that type of, power.
Ms. Freeman wanted to add something, and then you give Ms. Seymour.
I just wanted to mention that, the city is going through our redevelopment ready application, and one of the criteria is to shorten the time frame, and so with additional regulations that might be contrary to our application that we're going through. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was, if, depending on what the person's actually building, it might not be feasible to have, if they're building a garage, they might be looking to put in, or a shed, it might not be practical to make it a brick, if the house is brick, so.
Yeah, whatever is
Yeah,
built.
I mean, then you gotta kind of consider those some parameters.
Get it in.
All right, Ms. Seymour?
Yeah, I mean, this whole idea of land use, it's up to the council to decide, to make a decision on what, I mean, you can't just have a planner, I don't care who they are, making decisions about what can be built and how it can be built. You've got to have these governing bodies determine what's appropriate. We've got zoning regulations that say what can go in certain zones. This is very reasonable, it's just clarifying, like you said, Mr. President, that it's clarifying. There was a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation in the previous one that created a lot of, let's say, some discussion and
Dust
some...
blowing up.
Hmm?
Get some dust blowing.
We had some dust blowing up. And this is to clarify this, and it's not over-regulation. That's a big part of what we do is land use. It's a huge part of what we do. And it's fine if you trust your planner to do, read your mind and do, that's why we have all these zoning regulations. It's a huge part of what we do is land use and finance. Two of the most important things that we're here to do. So I see nothing wrong with it, it's very reasonable. I had a question about the 1,000 square feet in relation to other things, but I'm really quite satisfied with this. It's a clarification, I think it's important, and I don't think it's going to slow anything down.
All right, Mr. Ford wanted to add something, then, Ms. Mayor?
Again, I think this is reasonable. It does clarify the issue. It gives me some protection as far as how I read the ordinance. I just ask that the council consider, as Ms. Seymour stated, is that the site plan administrative approval continue with the industrial zones. And other than that, I think this makes sense, and it does clarify the issue, and it was my sincere interpretation before it wasn't clear. So I'm comfortable with this.
I would recommend if council is in agreement on the industrial, that I will step that out of here, right? So that it's definite.
Great. Ms. Mayor?
Just briefly, I just wanted to say, the reason why this was brought forward was because of the building department, and the building department has signed off on this. There's a couple ways you can legislate. You can legislate from a sense of accountability and trust. of your department head and your staff. And you also can legislate with regulations and step-by-step. And that boils down to trust. But regardless of wherever council is, there's some councils that have a lot of trust, and there's built-in accountability for processes. And when you don't see the outcomes you want, there are ways for you to navigate that. But right now, in this development-ready process, we need to be sensitive, and I keep saying that. Now, if we do this, are we adding costs to a company that wants to add 1,000 square feet? There's some council members say, I don't care, let them pay it. But in the reality is we are a competitive city with others. And as we look at, and I can name some people that made some tremendous development in this city, and they have said publicly and to me, to my face, I would never recommend anyone come to Southfield because it was not a good experience. And we have to be development ready, and we're going to have to really look at, we are competing with other cities. We are no longer the Greenland of the North. We are now an established, urban, suburban, developed city fighting for our vitality and fighting to compete with other cities. And we're going to have to say, you know, it may be your personal desire that I want to see every single thing, and I don't care if it takes 6 months. You can reschedule meetings, we cancel meetings, and you do all these things, but this is money that is directly impacting business development. And for a councilperson to say, I don't care how long it takes, I would question why you're here and what your role is and what you feel that your part is for economic development. But we really have to look at, are we charging more for a company to do this? Are we prolonging the length of time it takes to develop in the city of Southfield? And part of that comes with that accountability piece, and I think that's very important. Anyone that works here has an accountability, and this council has the final say on that. And absolutely, you should use that, and if you don't, you're not being an effective council person. But if you're sitting there with personal issues and prolonging and adding cost to development, that is not the path to go. And so and I'm not debating. I'm stating that we as a council and as mayor and as an administrative staff, when we make these decisions, no one's saying, okay, at the end of the day, we signed up on this and I feel good about this, because now I can look at every single thing that's going on. But as we're looking at that, there's staff time, there's administrative costs, and are we slowly inching up the ladder on being, when I'm looking at another community, what are the steps I have to go through to develop in Southfield? And what are the steps we have to go through with another community? So that's something I would like brought to the table. You know, you can tell me that this is a good thing, but at the end of the day, if I wanted to go to Farmington, or I want to go to Troy, is it now a longer period? Is it now cost more money for us to do business in the city of Southfield? And we have to make decisions, and I appreciate the fact sometimes we have to say, it may be more, but we need to do it here in Southfield. Because we do have, our land is not, we don't have mass green space. So we have to be conscious of how our land use is used, like Councilwoman Seymour said. It's extremely important. Look, for crying out loud, we have site plan, we have planning, we have the council, then we have the buildings, then we have all these other things that we do. And right now we have so many checks and balances, it's really hard for someone to sneak something in here. And we have a very active, engaged community. And you know, if they get a whiff of something being developed, they're going to come in and say, what are you doing? And so we are contacted individually when things are going up. And if this is the right thing to do, because our building department did say they agreed with it, and I think they're the one that brought up this concern. Our planners said they agreed with it. But I just want to, I'm passionate about saying, we cannot sit here as we did 30 and 40 years ago and say it's our way or the highway. We have to be innovative. You know, can we offset some of this with technology? Are we maximizing it? I'm concerned sometimes that us sitting down and looking at a bunch of paper and schmoozing and talking over it versus it being viewed on computers by people and commenting on it and expediting it. So, this is probably a conversation for another day, but it's this conversation that when we talk about what does it cost in that development ready, Shelley's operating almost in a silo with that. I want to know what does redevelopment ready mean, and Southfield, when we say we redevelopment ready, what does that really mean? How competitive are we with other cities?
Okay. Ms. Seymour is first, and then Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I did not say anything about I don't care how long it takes.
I did not call your
Well, you
name.
were looking right at me.
I look at you often. I did not call your name, so.
I didn't say you did, but I did not say that because time. Well, I'm so glad you're enjoying this. The point of it is, and we heard this at one of the meetings with the redevelopment ready committee, that a prominent developer here said that we don't take too much time. And it's it's a big issue for tiny little developers who don't really have the money to do these things. But to be redevelopment ready requires that you be transparent, that your procedures are transparent. That's the main thing, and we are that. These rules and regulations protect our staff as well as the people in the builders in the community. So Terry's happy with it. I think it's correct. It protects him. It protects other staff people. I think it's a ridiculous.
I don't want to limit anybody's time to talk, but as I'm reading the conversation, I think we have support for this. Let's continue with Mr. Moss.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Mr. Lance?
Yeah. I was only worried about checks and balances. I'm not, I always worried about the delay and everything. I have no intention of stopping anything I never had. But I don't want to eliminate the checks and balances.
And this
And we
helps.
can't, sometimes transfer it all into one hand. That's all I worry about.
All right, Mr. Prokop.
I just would like to use the cranes that we just got as an example. And I'd really like to know the reason why. And this Redical just bought a very, very large parcel in Northfield.
3 of them.
And they sold it, made a deal, they sold this part already off. And we sit here with prime property that they own, and nothing happens. And it really bothers me because way back when I-696 was formed, on the plan at that time showed nodes that were going to be developed because I-696 was going to be a major positive network through the communities. And if you looked at the nodes, they all went forward except two. And now we have one of the major owners of property here in the city that is investing somewhere else and sitting on property. He owed the price of the land, and he's a friend of mine, but I don't want to criticize him, but I wish he would sell his land and get out of here and go to Northfield, or help us along the way to promote the city. I mean, Mr. Sosnick was very positive towards Southfield. He would do anything for us to come to the meetings, very positive, talk about Southfield like it was the best thing in life. And that's where Redical was operating. Now you see them, putting land in storage. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it was very disheartening for me to see that, and all this prime land along Northwestern is sitting.
All right, this is what I'd like to do next. I'd like to see if there's consensus around the table to add the exception to this definition for the industrial. That would be I-1 and I-L zoning.
Isn't that in the regulation already? Not to hear, but it's been done. I think it is
Well,
already in there.
we're clarifying let's, if we're gonna clarify.
You want it all in one place, so
Yes,
there's...
ma'am. I think that,
Can we then, if there is, I think there is a place in the zoning ordinance, let's refer back to that section if it's in there.
a cross-reference.
Yeah, cross-reference, I think that would make sense.
Okay, so is there consensus, and I'll start with Ms. Jordan, to include the exception to, for the industrial? Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
I must say no, and I want to call for that.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, in the charter, the planner works for council. So the two departments that solely works for council. And we go out and hire a planner. And some way, and the mayor mentioned accountability, I mean, I would hope that we have somebody that we hire that works for us, would look to us for whatever decision he was making, if he thought that decision was massive enough or important enough to come before council and get some kind of explanation of how does the council feel about it. And I just think that the more power you give, not much power, but responsibility to our staff people, the better this operation runs. And if you're not doing the job, you know, hit the highway. But that planner works for the city council, and if there's something he does wrong, you sit down and straighten it all out. So as far as the building department, you know, I said it here when they were both here. I said, you two guys, it's your job, responsibility to work together. You're staff people, you're hired by the city, you've got a job to do, we're trying to build a city, whatever it takes, get it done. Go out in the backyard, as my son once said, you know, drop the puck and start playing, or whatever. But get it out, you know, and so that's why I just think this is something that could be worked out without going through a raising more ordinances.
Okay, and I'm going to support this, and I'm also qualified to say that, Don, I agree with you, what you're saying, but in this case, we had building against planning, and I just think we're, on this particular issue, we are better to clean up the language so we don't repeat this scenario again.
Let me just say this to you, Frank. If you look at the city center plan, there's a little part on that corner designated on that plan. And that's exactly what the planner did, almost to a T. So if anybody looked at the city center plan and seen what was proposed, you know, I'd like to now look at all those pieces that are on that city center plan now and just maybe remove them so council won't get an idea that that's what we're going to do.
Well, as you know, I approved I was fine with the administrative approval on the arbor lots.
You studied that plan.
All right, so let's, we're not voting on this tonight, but we do need a consensus to go back to legal.
To go to planning commission.
Yeah, and the planning commission, clean up our feedback and go to planning commission, so on. Ms. Jordan, are you fine with this amendment? Mr. Frazier?
Yeah, and I want to say, I don't disagree with Mr. Perkowski.
Mr. Frazier.
I don't disagree with him. And this situation did work. And the one thing that I do kind of challenge, or it's a pushback, that you say if they don't think that it's going to work, come to council. I really don't want to use that as a barometer, because it depends on which council person you come to. And one council person will say it's okay, and then they go ahead and do it, and they run into a buzzsaw with 3 other council people. And, you know, so I think this way kind of cleans the whole thing up. But it's a clear signal that our staff needs to work together. So that's it. And yes, I agree.
Yes.
Ms. Seymour?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Perkowski?
No.
We have 6 consent to go forward. All right, thank you. So we're going to move on to, this is another issue that came up recently, and we've got what appears to me to be an easy fix. We never know. But, Mr. Crowe, this is proposed amendments to the planning department review of fee schedule for minor site issues.
That's correct, and this is to hopefully be more business friendly. With the number of power outages and other issues that we've had over the last several years, we've had an increased request for generators. We continue to have requests for dumpster enclosures, minor parking striping revisions, and such. And we're bound by the council fee schedule, which states $750 plus for administrative type reviews. So if it's up to a 10,000 square foot building, or it's a generator, we have to charge $750. So we, based on some initial direction by the legislative committee, did some research. We're proposing a $250 fee for amendments to previously approved plans for these minor accessory types of structures. And that would give some relief to business owners who want to do things such as generators. So it's a straightforward change of one item, allowing for this fee.
Any discussion on this? Yes.
I think it's a common sense thing to do for smaller, I'm applauding Jerry for doing this. Maybe we should look at some of our other fees. This one came up in the situation and it came out of line.
We'd be happy to review all of our fees, but because there seemed to be an increased number of generators coming in and some balking about the price, we worked with the legislative committee to address this specific issue, and with council's permission, we can review all of our fees and bring it back at a later date.
I'm not hearing any other comments, so we'll move this forward. This also goes, what's the next step for this?
Resolution, or is that in the zone?
No, it's a resolution.
That'll come on the 21st.
21st. Great. Okay. All right, thank you.
And Mr. President, and put on record that the city planner is ready to review all his fees, and in fact, listen, a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we move on, I'm going to ask Mr. Dorn to introduce the next one. This is the creation of a sublease at McDonald Towers for the co-op store, what's known as the co-op store.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the October 21st regular meeting, staff would like to request a council resolution authorizing the sublease or the assignment of the retail space to a private operator, Tower Store LLC. About a year ago, the Southfield nonprofit housing corporation, the owners of McDonald Towers, River Park Place, and Woodbridge, was approached by a private operator. By way of history, about 12 years ago, the Parks and Rec Department took over the operations of the retail store. There's very limited hours, has a limited mix of retail merchandise. This private entity has come to us and said, we'd like to come in and take over the operations of the store. They're proposing to enter into a month-to-month lease, pay a rental rate of $650 per month, and expand the hours from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and the store will be open on Saturdays from 9 till 1 p.m., and they're proposing to also offer a pharmaceutical service for the residents there. There would not be a pharmacy there, but a resident would be able to drop off their prescription. It would be filled off-site, delivered back, possibly delivered either to the resident's unit or picked up at the store at a later time. If it's left in the store, it'll be locked up. The nonprofit had to get permission from MISTA as part of our lease arrangement with the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. we think this is a fairly good deal. Parks and Rec estimates that this is costing the department around $20,000 a year to operate this store. So that would end, in essence, a Parks and Rec subsidy to the operation, and the city would receive the benefit of the $650 a month rent or $7,800 a year in rent.
So we're seeing, actually, Mr. Block told me, not to correct you, but it was $22,000, and because they're paying Parks and Rec employees to run the store, who leaves in the early afternoon, thus closing the store. So we'd see a net gain here of about $30,000, receiving rent plus relieving the Parks and Rec budget of the responsibility of the store. And for the residents, it would be an increased service as well as inventory. So that, speaking as your representative to the Nonprofit Housing Board, the Nonprofit Housing Board is totally in favor of this and sees it as one of the enhancements that they're making to improve the daily life at these two apartment buildings. Mr. Lamb.
Yes, it's a very good idea, but how about the electric bill?
For the store?
Yeah.
That $650 does include utilities that they're paying.
It's another Illich deal. Illich didn't pay electric bills and everything, what have we made?
Well, that was in the lease that we agreed.
Well, that's why I'm talking about it now
Yeah.
here. They have refrigerators, electricity, lights.
Their original proposal was to pay us rent of $500 per month. We added
I don't care
another.
what the original, how about upping it? The electricity,
that's
they
what
can
he's telling
afford it.
Well, the original proposal was to pay rent of $500 per month, and we added another $150 a month for utilities.
That's a big business, huh?
Not a big business.
It is.
It's a
It will
small
be a big
store.
business. It's too
Is the
cheap.
store separately metered?
No.
So that's the problem, there's,
Right.
What?
No.
the store is not separately metered, so there's some reflection
yes.
of rent.
So we can make them separate.
Yeah.
But when Edison puts meters in our house, it's all separate.
I don't want to go there with a smart meter, but,
Well, you think $650 a lot?
I think
Like
because
that is
this,
a pharmacy,
so remember, this is,
and he has full control of a
let me
couple
just-
hundred people?
you just said it yourself, this is a good idea.
Yes, that's a good idea.
But hold on a second. It's also serving, it's not open to the public. This is a service
They
to
are
our
going to
residents.
open it to the public.
It's not open
You
to the
can't
public.
stop it.
Actually, MISTA restricts any exterior advertisement.
Okay, so say that.
That is one of the things we had to get clearance, so we went through background checks on the individuals. They cannot
That's a
sell
good idea,
liquor,
not against it.
they cannot sell a lottery ticket, they can't sell tobacco goods because the state doesn't prohibit that.
Okay.
No.
The water pipe.
Okay. All right, anybody else on this, Ms. Jordan?
Just a couple of questions, and I brought some of them up on council president's meeting. I sort of agree with Mr. Lance in terms of the cost of the rent. What's the square footage of this store?
I would need to check the exact measurements from the hip, I'm gonna say it's under 1,000 square feet.
1,000 square feet?
Under, and I need to check that. That's one of the areas in the lease, we need to put a description of the space. I need to get someone over there and measure it. It's an irregularly shaped space, so we'll have to get someone to come in and...
The poor layout for a store.
I agree with Mr. Lance. I want to make sure that we're, $650 is a small amount for rent, looking at what's going to be sold and it's for the residents that's there, which is a great idea. And my other question, which I asked the other day, was
did we go out for bid? Is there, you know, just to be fair to other small businesses that may be operating in Southfield and giving them an opportunity to possibly submit a proposal for us? No disrespect to these individuals here, but just to the small business owner that may want to take a shot at operating a small store for the season. So that's my only concern.
When we received this proposal, I originally went to Ray Tonzel, and the discussion was, you know, Fred, take a look at what's happened with the library concessions, and even the concessions at the ice arena. We've really struggled with having a successful operator in those ventures. They came to us, the lease is month to month. We will soon be refinancing the property. In the near 6 months, we'll probably be back in front of City Council to have a dialogue about the status of the city's lease altogether. There are currently 2 leases which expire in 2014 and 2017 for sublet, and as we refinance, that's an opportunity to bring that issue back in front of council. But Ms. Tonzel, the former purchasing agent, and I did discuss that matter. We didn't have a lot of people breathing down the door on this item. We probably could have went out, had Ray and I felt it would end up being the same type of experience we had with the library. Here we had someone coming to us, we know it is running us $22,000 a year, so we go from spending $220,000 to making $7,800. It is also a month-to-month lease. It's a month-to-month lease in the event that it just doesn't work out for the nonprofit or the city.
I would really hope that within a year we could possibly bid this out and begin with our chamber here in Southfield, Southfield Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Black Chamber of Commerce that's here in the city. I mean, the small business, these other gentlemen have large operations, but at least giving the small business an opportunity to possibly start their business or expand their business.
One of the wrinkles here was the prescription.
That's, if I could answer the question.
Getting that approved by MISTA, there were a few hurdles there.
Separate them out, so, I mean, just not lump them all together, but
that's what makes this work. The store has been a money boost. But go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. When you start storing drugs on the premise, it has to be an area that there's not just normal lock it in a drawer. There has to be a specialized, and I want to make sure that's in the lease and it's a requirement.
It is in the lease. They have to comply with all local ordinances as well as state requirements. The drugs that will be stored on site are actual prescriptions, but they will be in some type of vault that still needs to be determined how that will be structured and put together.
Okay. And who would be responsible for the packaging and all of the...
A licensed pharmacist associated with Heritage Pharmacy.
No, I'm talking about when you have a store, and Mr. Koski can speak to this, there's packaging, there's boxes, and there's things, and if you're not a good operator, you tend to store that thing and things get not acceptable. So is there anything in the lease that would require all excess boxes to be removed, and it's removed by the responsibility of the owner, not added to the pickup of the unit, the custodial staff there? I think if you're leasing that space and you're operating it, you should be responsible for total cleaning of it and removing.
There was a provision about keeping it in a clean and orderly fashion, you know, so that it is available for people to shop there.
Refuge, you mean, all the
I don't want them to start sitting it outside in the hall and it's responsibility of the building.
There's actually...
It should be very clear that is their total responsibility.
There's actually an exterior door that is right next to the dumpster.
They can use the dumpster for the nonprofit.
That's correct.
So I just want to make sure that they operate independently and they don't start encroaching upon the services of the McDonald's.
Let me just add one other thing. Before we even suggested this, and when I say we this time, I'm talking about the nonprofit housing board, we took field trips. We went to Jewish Senior Life. which offers much more to their residents on 10 Mile and Greenfield and Oak Park than we're offering. We went to the Heritage, we went to Kroger's. They all have dry cleaning services, they have prescription drug pickup and drop-off. They have all the security protocols for people's valuable clothing as well as the packaged prescriptions. And we, the Nonprofit Housing Board, felt very comfortable then including this as a way to make this work because, again, it's not open to the public. We want to see fresh fruits in there, a limited supply of healthy food. But right now it's chips and pop and little cans of Tide and things, boxes of Tide. And most of the shelves are empty. So this was a way to make this whole thing work. We've discussed this, I think, for 18 months in our committee meetings.
I was going to say, when it was run before, there was a wholesale house up in by Square Lake Road in Southfield Township, and you could buy wholesale. All these little distributors who sell wholesale are all gone. So it's become almost not profitable even to get goods, put them into a small business unless you have some kind of a store on the side and you're moving stuff from one store to the other. Nobody can buy groceries anymore and make money. I mean, it's a loser. Everything is a loser anymore. That's why lottery and all that is junk, selling cash and paying bills.
Okay, we need a consensus on this so that we can bring this back on the 21st, correct? Consent, Ms. Ward?
Yep, anytime.
So-
I will make sure that at least we've added some of these things that we
Yeah.
discussed. Right.
Ms. Ward?
I have no problems, and I stated my concerns, but I think we should review this in 1 year. I know it's a month by month, but if we can review this in 1 year and possibly look at rebidding and just going out to the public to see who's out there.
Is it possible that we could review this when as we're going through the refinancing? One of the issues we're going to have to deal with is the future of the city's lease. And I'd like to deal with them both at the same time.
So that can be included.
Review as part of refinancing.
Now, as part of the refinancing, the two subleases that the city has, they're originally 40-year leases, will need to be reviewed because as we present our financing, that'll be a question that the finance community will be asking.
I'm glad to see this being added to the capital. We've got to bring it up, and we've kind of done a great job, but I just want to make sure that we're fair to others that may want it.
Mr. Fraser?
Yeah, I agree with it. I just want to say that I used to go over to my downtown store, AARP meetings. For several years, you go by there, and there was about 4 things on the shelf. I mean, it was just pitiful. I mean, they would be better off just shutting the door and walking away from it. So anything you put in there is going to be a lot better than it has been, and it would be a service to the people in the building. So, yes.
Yeah, I definitely support this, and I support Ms. Jordan's additional comments to the proposal.
I support it, and I'm happy to see that they're going to be adding fresh produce.
I think it'll work.
Yes.
Let me just add, and I support it, obviously. Let me just add another concern that we've heard from the residents. We recently had an all-resident meeting, and some of the folks, they don't drive. They can't get out, so they're dependent on relatives, and then we've had reports of people wandering the hall. And their security improvements are part of a plan that's coming. But you have people coming in the building to drop off stuff for residents, and it upsets other residents, even if they're, you know, they're totally legit, the folks get anxious about things, people they don't know in the hall, especially after dark. So this is one of the reasons to extend the hours of the stores and restock it so that really for the resident safety and convenience. That's really the basis of all of this.
Well, why can't the doors be locked? Not in the other senior citizens.
They, right now, there's an issue that's being corrected, but the main door of McDonald Towers is open from until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then it is locked. Cameras are on their way, a whole new door system, a buzzer with a camera and so on. The security is on the top of the list of things that nonprofit housing board is doing, which were all resisted and aren't in today because the former manager refused to move on these things. So it's, you know, we just had a meeting, as Fred can tell you about this, and it's the number one priority for Lockwood, for all three buildings.
Somebody taking that down.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I would just like to say that one of the things, and you brought it up when you said that there are a number of people that don't drive. The last few years my mother was alive, she lived in a senior complex in Kalamazoo. And one of the things that was hard for the people in there, it was fortunate she had family that would help do things. But a lot of people that don't have family have a difficult time getting fresh fruit and vegetables, especially during off-season. And I would certainly hope that they would have an area where they would have fresh fruits and vegetables so that people can have a healthy menu to eat.
that's been discussed.
Yes. So,
It's actually in the lease.
It is.
It's required.
okay, very good, because
And I help the freezer for all the food.
Let me add, when you're talking about transportation, what happened to people who came on a cab? They wanted to put 10 or something cabs in the city, and we were going to use.
we're going to talk about that. This is the neighborhood.
They were going to take
have a
out a
meeting.
cost, they would take some money out of cost to subsidize it or something like that. You brought it up, I forgot.
Yeah,
what
that's right. Was that the
details
neighborhood?
were.
It was a neighborhood meeting, and they,
Okay.
We're waiting for that meeting.
I know.
Okay, so we're moving on then to number 6.
On both of these, I'll just do a little intro and then.
This
is authorization to join the Oakland County Brownfield Consortium for furtherance of brownfield site revitalization. And with funding provided by the EPA, this is not a matching grant. It's a $600,000 grant with the county. Our allocation would be $60,000. The term would be for the period October 7th through September 30th of 2016. It's the kind of thing we should be involved in. It's an opportunity to assist our businesses in environmental due diligence.
Well said. At the October 21st meeting, if we have a consensus tonight, we'd like to get council's authorization for the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement to join the Oakland County Brownfield Consortium. As Mr. Shred has stated, Southfield, if we elect to join the consortium, is eligible to receive up to $60,000 of a $600,000 grant that the consortium received. The funds, as we were earlier talking about, redevelopment ready is an excellent way to help a potential buyer who's maybe a little shy about looking at a piece of property, or if we don't know enough about a history, it gives staff one more tool, and that tool is, you know, we can offer the assistance of a Phase 1 environmental study for both hazardous and petroleum materials, as well as partial cost sharing for Phase 2 and Phase 3 work. It's a good way to prime the pump on some of our more troubled sites within the community.
Any discussion on this? We need a, yes, Mayor?
This does not supersede our own brownfield.
Well, the city has, it's our brownfield authority. These are assessment dollars. Our brownfield authority does not offer assessment dollars. So it does not succeed. This could lead to more product for our brownfield authority.
It does, in the administrative part of it is handled by Oakland County, which is a good thing.
If you may recall, we previously had a grant for $200,000. We exhausted that, I think, about a year ago. Ms. Freeman gave a report. And the typical path the community takes is you get your first grant on your own, then you join a consortium, and then the consortium, this one is both hazardous and petroleum-based. Sometimes there are dollars just that are hazardous, sometimes funding just for petroleum. The EPA will probably have something for vapor intrusions in the next year and a half. That's a big area that the EPA is working on. But then the next thing is an EPA revolving loan fund that the consortium could get.
So otherwise, a business person would be taking a risk to get an assessment. This will fund that. So it encourages people to at least take a look at some areas that maybe they wouldn't want to.
And if they don't take that property, we still then have the information to share with other folks.
And we were notified that it would be very unlikely that we would receive another large allocation like we had received in the past, and it would be best and it would help strengthen the county's chances of receiving their allocation. And so that's why we had agreed to work with Oakland County.
It also looks good on our EVIP.
Yes, this is one of the things we'll put on our EPIP report.
I just want to add one more thing. The consortium is made up of southern Oakland County communities that generally are landlocked, quote unquote, for a better word, and they need more redevelopment. So it's good that we're part of this combined effort. So, you know, a lot of things we talk about will come down to the south end. This is a south end type of thing.
Thank you. All right, so I need a consensus on this. This will come back on the 21st. Ms. Jordan? Frazier?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
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 Yes, and I vote yes. Say yes. So, thank you.
The last item is that you'll take this into after the reduction. The city has and gets increased possession of certain lands through Oakland County. Some of them need to be sold because they're basically a burden in terms of maintenance. And before anything would be sold, obviously, come back to council. What we'd like to do is get the assistance of the real estate professionals to help us with that.
In other words, we're looking to hire a broker to market vacant property.
Possibly two. It could be plural.
Right. Mr. Prokopsky?
Fred, we have properties that we are investing money in today, rehabbing them, and we have houses that are in line to be fixed up. Are they going to come aboard to sell some of the vacant houses as is, as well as what we spend all the money to get them repaired? Let me just tell you why. I just think that the housing market and what we're spending on fixing these houses up, I think exceed what we can get out of these houses.
This is really vacant property we're talking about.
You know,
right?
well, I don't know, it's houses too, right?
No, vacant property.
What kind of vacant houses we have? We have 12 miles.
They got 12 miles.
Vacant land.
How much do we have?
Rutland and 8 Mile.
Quite a few.
We probably have 20 parcels throughout the city, and what staff would like to do is present those parcels to the finance committee as an evaluation as to which ones. The LDFA bought some properties. There's a parcel on 8 Mile that we think is really primed. Right now, there was a recent, 2 parcels were recently acquired not too far from there at the county tax foreclosure auction by an entity. There's a couple parcels on Greenfield.
Or you give a list of them.
Yeah,
But then let me say this then I would like to have you review getting some company, real estate or otherwise, that would take care of all our vacant homes that we have, got under our control to get rid of, as opposed to us fixing these houses up under contracts and then trying to sell them. Because, I mean, I just gave Jim, seeing it was in the Wall Street Journal, you know, how much money you put into a house, say, for example, for a bathroom or a kitchen, and that's a roof. I mean, that exceeds what you can get out of the house. When you're talking about putting $100,000 in the house, that you can get $125 maybe, you pay commission and stuff. Tax, you're not getting taxes.
Those are NSP dollars.
Right.
Those are NSP.
No, I understand, I know that, I know.
I think an update on that.
What?
I think an update on that, we can include the finance.
We are nearing completion of our renovation and fulfilling our contractual obligations with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And in certain ways, the slight uptick in the market is working. Our last sale was $145,000. But we're not making money. I'm not going to discount that. But the intent of the NSP program wasn't to make money. But we are fulfilling the last of those obligations to HUD, and we're in the home stretch for this. At the end of the summer, for the first time, I can see some light that.
But let me tell you what my problem is. Before we get to the housing, get funds to work on these houses are sitting, and they're in bad repair, and they're a negative to the neighborhood, and. In other words, we're not getting them to them fast enough. And I don't know what could expedite it. And all I know is that some houses that are over 3-4 years have been sitting vacant in the neighborhoods and actually rotting in front of your eyes. And, you know, weeds are coming up through the driveways and they cut through with the moors, but there's weeds. Matter of fact, the front of yards are more weeds than grass. I just feel bad that when people call me and they said, you know, this neighbor over here, and I say, well, you know, the city owns that. You know, like the one out of Virginia, for example.
From the beginning of the program, I was up front. The last thing we wanted to do was in the speculative housing business. The NSP program on those homes that were bought with buyers moved the product very quickly and very successfully, and a cost per square foot less than what we're seeing now. What put us in this position was we had obligations to meet certain expenditure deadlines with HUD, so we found ourselves having to buy homes on speculation. I'm not going to disagree with your statement. The speculative homes have been the toughest. I think all but 3 are under contract right now, and we are finalizing the specs on those final 3.
We're on a full court press to take advantage of the uptick in the
The other
market.
thing I'm going to say, Mr. Prakash, particularly for you, and I'm just going to direct this back to finance, was as council president, we were talking strictly about vacant parcels that could be sold and developed, not the houses. But the whole thing, we were going to recommend after this discussion tonight that it go to finance and charge your committee with examining this whole thing. But we want to get have our purchasing department develop the RFQ so we can start vetting a possible broker who would market the properties that would be brought to finance committee and identified and brought to finance. So
yeah, I'd be more than glad to have that on my agenda, because I just think that we have to do a better job at taking care of these foreclosures and vacant houses.
I think we've all experienced what you're talking about. I know the mayor and I.
You for one knows what it costs to rehab a house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's surprising.
And we've got one just down the street from us.
It's surprising. I mean,
on Melrose.
The ones who are making money are guys who own construction companies, and they get good people to work, and they're paying them for $25 an hour and, you know, and then they may rent them or sell them, but for us to subcontract everything, we're poor as valued at that. Anyway.
All right,
Let's
I
move that,
had, Mr.
Surratt,
Moss
we move that on to the agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Moss, then, Ms. Seymour, and then Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, no, I think Mr. Perkowski definitely asked a lot of the questions I was going to. Is there, we're talking about 20 piece parcels? I just want a clearer list, maybe if they can get back to council. I'm just curious as to what type of properties we're talking about throughout the city.
Some are vacant lots, some are commercial properties running 8 mile, 12 mile, greenfield. The community development block grant acquired a lot of parcels years ago around greenfield.
Red, can you just real quickly review how we come into possession through the county of
Well, some of the parcels were acquired by the LDFA. The local development finance authority had a plan that prescribed certain activities. They were acquiring certain properties years ago. Community development block grant has acquired a number of parcels as part of perhaps blight elimination. And then some of the properties were acquired by the DDA. Some are tax foreclosures for non-payment of taxes after 3 years. They come back to the city. If no one buys it, the city may have exercised an option in the past for $1 to acquire the property. With those properties, there are title clearing issues that need to be resolved. But those are pretty much the parcels that they follow a track. There are 3 notebooks up in the city administrator's office that detail the acquisition of a lot of these properties.
You know, Don, and you'll remember this, that the purchase of those lots on Greenfield, we were, at one time it was going to be low-income housing, and then we learned that the lots weren't deep enough.
Part of the scattered house.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that. So we still own that property.
When Don Gross was the administrator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We were supposed to
This
do
will
that.
make it very transparent for people who are perhaps looking to at least know who to contact. Staff, myself, Terry Shelley, and I, sometimes we find ourselves ferreting. I've got a guy who wants to do a tire shredding one. We don't even consider that one. And there are different people through time who brought different business concepts that aren't consistent with the zoning, and we usually very quickly try to turn those around. We've had some people who think we should give them the land. So this will advertise, the RFQ will look for people who are experienced, in particular the redevelopment process, demonstrate some type of understanding of local zoning laws. It's amazing, there seems to be a lot of folks who don't quite know how to look these things up, but someone who will help shepherd people through the process.
One more thing, gentlemen. What's happening on the lot on 12 Mile Road in Sutherland? The one that they're using for construction site?
We're working to get that cleaned up, but that's one of the parcels I'd like to see us list.
Yeah, but they've got to leave that in a condition that we can market it. And these guys were in there this last week. I don't even know what they're taking out of there anymore. I've seen a couple of pickup trucks in there.
Mr. Hrabowski and I talked about that
I don't know if they're dumping.
almost 3 weeks ago.
I think they're dumping in there, really.
We will go pay it a visit. Then they're not to be putting any spoils there. They were to be using that for
But
construction
I don't even know
materials.
it's them. I think it's other
You
people.
think someone else? Okay.
Yeah.
We will pay the site a
You know,
visit.
we've got a lot of different conversations going on now, so let's...
And that was a parcel acquired through
Mr. Moss,
tax
are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, then we're going on to Ms. Seymour, who has to be recognized.
Well, I did, huh? I can't remember what it was.
Okay, then Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, are we talking the vacant property? Are we talking about the property that we own behind McDonald's Doors?
No.
That we were at one time?
Nonprofit owns some
Not
of
the
it.
nonprofit.
City owns
Well,
some of it as well.
Yeah.
The city does own some of that.
Yeah.
Community development acquired that. The nonprofit owns.
Yeah, we were waiting for that one other house because then we own that
Well,
house.
the nonprofit in
Oh, yeah.
February
Bought another lot.
bought a foreclosure, and out on the street right now are the specs to demo that property.
The house on the end?
No, not the one on the end, but Ken's.
Okay.
um,
But that's not that's not the property we're talking
No,
about.
we're not talking about marketing at that property.
Simmons Street.
These are
The other
scattered
thing
lots.
is,
all
Yeah,
over.
I know we, a year ago, we got some property back from the county. There's one little piece that nobody knows where it's at. That's off of Civic Center behind the, it looks like it's about a 10-foot square piece of property on the backside of a parking lot on Civic Center Drive behind the apartments but.
Okay, so, on this item, we can do a Rule 10 tonight to get, this is
So,
just...
Mr. Chairman?
All right, this is just to give authorization, so it's been moved by Mr. Perkowski, supported by Mr. Moss for Rule 10. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move the recommendation of the letter of Mr. Charette on October 7th.
support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Fraser, or Perkowski.
We need to wear name tags.
I'm just gonna have to call him Don and Myra, it's easier.
At least you didn't call
Anyhow,
me Gerald.
yeah, and supported by
Oh, you're on
Mr.
the
Moss.
agenda
All
today.
those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we move on to communications. And I'm calling out Pamela Gerald. Let the record show that she's not here. We have an extra item that we wanted to introduce before we go to council items. So I sent you all an email on Friday regarding a proposal that came very, very quickly to the county and not to the city of Southfield regarding Rizzo Environmental to build locate a trash transfer station in Southfield. I sent you all that email. Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
We had to move very, very quickly on this, so it was after the swearing-in ceremony. Anyhow, we have, I'll let Mr. Charette or Ms. Ward explain this further, but you were notified Friday by email about this. And what's transpired, there was supposed to be a county meeting tomorrow where they were going to take this issue up. And Ms. Jackson, Commissioner Jackson is here this evening also who can speak to it. So, Mr. Charette, do you want to leave that off?
Yes, we were contacted by company officers. By two persons that wanted us to respond to quote-unquote heads up on some information relative to solid waste. Okay, I felt it was inappropriate to respond to that, and so we discussed it at the council president's meeting. We then made a contact with Mr. Athens. And he is representing this Rizzo, okay? We then found out in that conversation that there was a plan afoot through a county procedure to have a transfer station transaction going on in our tech corridor on Telegraph. Of course, there are very serious problems with that, and so a letter was written that emphasized our concerns, and furthermore, we had a meeting today with Mr. Rizzo himself and another PR person.
It's government relations.
Yes, government relations person, and they have determined, they indicated that they have no desire to cause issues, that they aren't responsible for the process itself, and they concluded that it would be best if they withdrew that request from the county.
What also transpired is that Brenda and I and Jeremy as chairman of the legislative committee got on the phone with all of our county reps, including Dave Woodward, because he chairs the minority chair of the building or the planning and building committee where this is going to go tomorrow morning. they were going to put this on the agenda without even talking to us. So we got a hold of Farrells, Zach, Jackson, Gersonson, and who's also on the committee, and just said, wait a minute. And we were asked by our commissioners then to draft a letter that would go to all the commissioners, correct? And which we ran by, it was the mayor, myself, and Jeremy drafted the original draft, and then it ran by Sue, Jim, Fred, and Terry with their input. And then that letter went out Friday late in the afternoon. I immediately copied it to all of you with an explanation of what has happened. So it did go in your email Friday. And we were prepared to discuss it today, but then Jim called me first thing this morning and said, can you get up here? Rizzo himself is coming at 2 o'clock. So we had this meeting and had sort of a happy ending.
And the attorney did follow up, and there is a letter to the county asking them to withdraw the Southfield site from that application that starts tomorrow.
Jen, if you'd like to add.
Right.
I just want to add that as a commissioner and in communication with elected officials, as a commissioner and being in contact and communication, speedy communication with the elected officials here, I'm sure that had a bearing on the withdrawal of this whole proposal, because it was fast-tracked to go to the Planning and Building Committee meeting tomorrow morning, upon which, before this reversed in their action, Councilman Boss, as well as Mr. Crowe and Mr. Zorn, were going to come and address the committee, because the way things were going in this effort, what I was told early today, in speaking with one of the attorneys, Mr. McCowan from, what is it, McCowan? No, Plunkett and Cooney and Plunkett. We had two law firms involved in this whole situation, and I'm sure the council members had contact with as well as I believe they met with Mr. Crowe, or either it was the consultant from Rizzo.
Yeah.
Mr.
Aston.
Yeah. So all of these people were involved in this process to try to really get this item before the Planning and Building Committee tomorrow, because what they were trying to do was amend the county's solid waste management plan that had not changed since 1999. So we as a city and this development was being thrown into that whole process. At least that's how it was explained to me. So basically at this point, they, through the hard work and communication and the efforts and letting the parties involved know that this was going to be something that was not going to be desired for this city in very strong terms. I think the word was emphatically, we do not want this here. And the letter drafted by and signed by Mayor Lord. So I guess tonight I'm here more so just to be grateful and thankful to be part of this collaboration.
Yep, without any.
Mr. Percassi.
And they approached me, they were looking for a place to repair their trucks and park their trucks.
This is the second one, this is a different one.
Totally different.
Actually,
Yeah.
I was explaining that
wait a
was going to
minute,
be a piece of this. You're right.
So they were looking at the Wolverine plant.
Right.
Right?
It's totally different. This is
So,
different.
wait a minute. And so after when they got through saying that was not acceptable because they talked to Terry, and then they said, are there any other sites? And they looked, somebody told them about this whole park and the broken concrete back there and whatever. And they asked me to get a aerial of that area to see if that was something that they could use, but it was specifically for repair and storage of their trucks so they could be dispatched from that. So I don't know how this all turned.
This is a transfer station.
Yeah, but.
Where you take the smaller
what I'm
trucks
trying to
over
say
to the bigger ones.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to say to you that this has been going on ever since the Wolverine, they've been looking in Southfield for a place to park all their trucks.
So this
Yeah.
is going to be transferring garbage.
Okay, well.
From all over the place.
All over, garbage from elsewhere.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Not our
What I'm just saying is that I
That's what I
heard
thought.
differently,
Yeah.
and I thought that it's a big garage back there. I don't know if anybody drove back there. It's a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a mess. And that, if anything, that ought to be cleaned up, because they're working on cars back there. There's on both sides. They got this big.
The Telegraph side or the Wolverine side, I'm sorry?
No, Telegraph side.
Where, in what building?
In back of the frontage. It only has a little spot that goes back there.
Right.
And it's all
In
already
the old
dumped.
trailer
Remember,
park.
he illegally dumped all that cement?
Cement.
Yeah.
So you're saying they're working on cars outside?
No, right along the property line, there's a big garage where they're working on all kinds of trucks and cars and, you got Avis Ford, or not Avis Ford, but.
Isn't that the old Art Moran building back there?
I don't know what the heck back there.
The old Art
That's what I think, it's the old Art Moran building.
We're gonna need to pay them a visit.
Yeah.
It's staff's intention in the next week to pay this site a visit. The old cement place, as well as the two parcels immediately to the south, those are both all three parcels were subject of what was proposed for the transfer station. The cement place is probably a good candidate for the Brownfield Consortium if we can get an owner to cooperate. But we need to get a dialogue going, and staff will circle that wagon with code enforcement, building, planning, just make sure that whatever is happening there is legal and in compliance.
But if there isn't enough frontage, but if there was enough frontage, that'd make a nice park, tech park, back there.
When you look at the aerials,
There's a real nice entranceway into a nice
well, when you look at the aerials,
incubator.
there's 20 acres of land, there is a potential for that. Mr. Crowe and I discussed that.
Two good things came out of this exercise. It's painful, but one is what you pointed out to the communication that was initiated and was effective. Three actually. The second was that we got the desirable outcome. The third is that our attention is on this site now. I mean, we know we have to deal with it.
There are some vacancies on this board, the Solid Waste Management Board, and that may not be the full title. But we need to find out how those vacancies are filled and that. But seeing we've been kind of process of this recent, maybe one of the things we should be asking for is that someone from Southfield is a representative on it. We know Mike Staple from LawSac is one of the board members. Waste Management has a board member. But we need to learn a little bit more, because I think as County Commissioner Jackson has said, we got a solid waste plan that's 13 years old. They're obviously looking to update it. Terry, it's supposed to be updated every 5 years?
That's
is that
correct.
what we found? So it's not in compliance.
The
The other thing is, there is a transfer station on 8 Mile that's sitting idle. And I don't know if there's a way to have that
Where
removed
at?
from the plan.
Where at?
Republic.
Republic Allied?
You mean that transfer station? That's got a
It's
deed
mothballed.
restriction that another company cannot use it for.
Well, then we've got an issue with the solid waste plan that allows only one entity to use it. And it needs to, and if they're not operating it, then it probably needs to be.
Because Rizzo was looking at that site.
Exactly.
They do not want
And they
competition.
put the deed restriction to block
Right,
Rizzo.
yeah.
So as a community, we're already doing our fair share. We've got one in the plan. And then
And we
someone
have the
puts a deed
recycling center.
restriction and locks anyone out from using it, so they want to open another one? That's,
I just want to add that our county commissioners were tremendous. They stepped up, they returned our calls immediately, they were on this. I got communication from both Janet and Nancy over the weekend, and we really thought we were heading to a showdown on Tuesday morning. So this is something please read that email. This was,
See, that's just something.
This is a very quick thing that we were blindsided by.
Somebody, no, you get all your emails.
No, I haven't been doing emails. My thing is my brother-in-law died.
There's-
My
I'm
husband's
sorry to
brother
hear that.
died,
Talk about
and I'm
that.
helping a widow in a
Yeah.
wheelchair and at MS.
All right,
That's why I'm-
Mr. Fraser.
Yeah, I think that we need to take this action as a warning, because late last week, there was headlines in the Oakland Press where Rizzo took on the mayor of Troy, Rochester Hills, because they thought they got unfavored as far as so I think they want to start competing for trash hauling in this area, and it sounds to me like they want to do it bare knuckles. Because they claim that the mayor had a foundation that Waste Management gave them $1,000 for about 3 days before the vote was taken. And, oh no, it's not. I don't think it's really tied there, but it doesn't look good. So I think they want to go bare knuckles.
That's why we needed to attack this as a team.
Yeah.
There was no good to come out of individual phone conversations.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to be careful when our lease comes up, our contracts come up for renewal. Yeah.
And so, just one more point I just want to make in Commissioner Corr's absence this evening. It was also very appalling that these two actions were being taken in the city of Southfield and the city of Pine. Of all the places in Oakland County. There was a feeling of why the two majority minority teams. And I'll just put a period behind that and say nothing else further. But that was also one of the points brought up in the letter and against this. So tomorrow we're going to the meeting. I'll be with Commissioner Crowe. I'm sorry, Commissioner. Senator Crowe and Administrator Dorn. So I'll be proud to accompany them, and we'll take this wonderful lesson. And while I'm here, real quickly, a point of personal privilege, if I may. And the police chief, I'll take like 2 minutes. The police chief, he left early, but I just wanted to share with everyone here 2 headlines that I'm sure everyone has seen. And I'll make this really, really quick. This is one of my passions within my job. And there's going to be a resolution brought forth to the Oakland County Commission in regards to human trafficking. And these 2 headlines show that it was a problem within our city. Our police chief was so kind to host me last week, and he's going to dedicate some of his officers to participate in the task force and study group, as well as the state police representative for the Crimes Against Children task force. We want to try to do something to help maybe our hotels address this in some kind of way, because we don't want these types of headlines in our community.
That's right.
And we have a lot of young people growing up here. I grew up myself off of 8 Mile Road in Detroit, and I saw this kind of activity firsthand going on. And our children, this shouldn't be a part of our youth.
No.
So I just wanted to say that real quickly. Thank you very much. And the meeting is going to be at the Field Zone on Monday, October the 28th, from 6 until 8. So
Mr.
please come
McCarthy
and
is.
Well, I'd like to recommend that we send this to our planner and look at the possibility for a tech incubator site. See if maybe we can get the right zoning and the right area where we could possibly assist and bring in companies to come into that corridor. Number 2 is, before the Finance Committee, I'd like to bring up a commercial piece that it still pays no taxes to the city.
The corner?
And see how we can get that straightened around and get that back on the rolls.
Sure, that has another,
Not for sale.
has another year to go, but council can terminate that at any time. That's the property that we took an easement on for public use, right in the corner there, and in consideration of the city being able to use it for kind of park purposes, we took it off the tax rolls. So it has not been paid taxes.
And I think we got taken on that because we always believed they had a site plan that was coming to us, and that they were gonna actually build on it, and had a brownfield, and now it's for sale. And I think every commercial person in the city would love to have tax-free land they could sit on and put the property up for sale at our expense. And I just don't appreciate that.
Okay, yes, the mayor next and Mr. Moss.
I just want to say to our county commissioner, Ms. Jackson.
Ms. Jackson, County Commissioner.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that one of the things that I've talked to the chief about, and possibly our city planners, how can we, because there are some hotels who openly know that their facility is being used for these type of activities. Is there any way that we can, on a county level or some form to say that you can lose your license for your hotel if you openly support and encourage that type of activity? It's got to be something.
That should be, and that should be part of an ordinance. If we can adopt a countywide ordinance, it all starts with the conversation. The police and law enforcement's job is to arrest and prosecute, and our job
it's a revolving door. They arrest and then they just, because they're, I'm not going to name the hotel, but it's no way they cannot know. And the other thing is that,
Right down the parking lot.
exactly, so there's other things that we should have an ordinance that you have to lease a hotel room for a day, and that you have to lease under a name, with license plates or something, but there's some things that we can do. You cannot have a hotel and just have someone walk up and rent a room without showing ID and without renting it for the day. Exactly.
And usually these are the types of things
The other hotels,
They already do it.
yeah, they enforce it.
But if it's an ordinance that regardless of whoever if you have a hotel license, you have to follow those rules. Because we know that if you go to a hotel, a professional hotel, you have to do those things.
All right, Mr. Moss is next.
Yeah, I'm bringing this from the legislative committee, and I talked to Bill Zagman. He looped administration in on an email. This is coming forward. It's going to the House Local Government Committee that they're taking testimony from local communities on the issue of blight. I want to refer this to administration because it's coming up this Thursday at 10:30. I'll read the email. This is from Bill. I'm told that the goal of Thursday's committee hearing is to help shed some light on the procedural issues that communities across Michigan are facing when they attempt to eradicate blight. They said that they've heard problems from everything from cloudy title problems to documentation issues to uncooperative ownership. The idea is that perhaps by stepping back and looking at specific problems our communities are facing, we'll be able to develop targeted strategies to remove some roadblocks for them. Their goal is to assist in overcoming barriers, not pointing fingers. Would anybody from the city be interested in testifying Thursday morning? So I wanted to bring that, as it's coming up in just 4 days, I wanted to let the administration know that they have a voice there. We got
Huge.
it's all encompassing this conversation,
Anything else to be brought before council? Yes, Mayor.
Just an update on the Pink Door campaign. As you all walked in, saw our Pink Door. It is fabulous. The facilities, said, what do you want? I said, just be creative. And I think they did a very professional job with the Pink Door. And it is spreading. We are doing a press conference, and today, UPN 50? CW. The 50 came out, and all of our firefighters, we had about 20 firefighters in their pink shirts.
They're wearing skirts.
No, they were there in their shirts, and we're getting a lot of press. There'll be a press conference that all the council is invited to attend.
When is it?
It's on Thursday, and I'll make sure it gets to Nancy so she knows at Providence Hospital. I'm sorry, Wednesday.
Sure, pink at the press conference?
Yeah, you so choose. And I want to remind you all, there's two options. You can purchase one of the T-shirts and wear it under your jacket or however for the next council meeting, wear a pink tie, however you want to do it, but we do want our
They
council.
don't have it yet, I just asked Chief Rowley.
They're ordering, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's, no, it's not. That's purple. It's cold. No, that's purple. That's purple.
This pink?
I do have a pink door, though, I did that
Yeah,
today.
and Michael's have a display, and so they sold over 100 wreaths from the Michael's store, and all the Michael's stores are sending everything they have pink to our store, and it's really catching on.
The only thing Nancy declared, what a beautiful job they did.
Yes, same thing.
We didn't have a door,
Yeah,
so we.
they did, you're right, they did a beautiful job. I watched them put it up, but they're good decorators.
Anything else that comes for council?
When I first came in, it's a big door. I had concern that somebody from the inside, because I didn't come from the inside, that it was a solid pink, and that people were gonna get banged in the head when somebody was coming out, but because, no.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a screen from the inside. Yeah, and one, I would like to make one request, that next year, during the month of September, we have a blue door.
I agree.
That's right.
Because we got to do more for prostate cancer, we
Yes.
really do. Because the men are tremendous supporting us, and the pink campaign.
Right.
And we need to be, as women, more supportive.
Right. See all those football players running around with pink shoes
You're
on.
gonna start one.
That's right, that's right. Yeah.
Hearing nothing else, this meeting's adjourned.
I told you, go,